r/Askreddit with mr.greatstory. What is the worst thing that happened at your school? The gym teacher had a hidden camera for years in the girls' locker room placed inside a washer with a do not open sign. For whatever reason nobody ever opened it. A student that cut his grass decided to snoop in his house while the teacher wasn't home. He came across tapes named Last Look 03 and other names of that nature. Popped one into the VCR and saw the girls from our school on the tapes. It made some big news as this teacher was well respected, especially as a track and football coach. There was a girl in my school who was being bullied and basically chased into the busy street in front of the school. She got hit by a few cars. The next morning people were making fun of the situation because her shoes flew off after she was hit. My school was filled with assholes. Edit, she did end up dying. Edit 2, I think she may have died on impact, but the memory is fuzzy. She didn't die in the hospital, that I know for sure. Kid streaked, fully naked, across campus, hiding his face using a condom. He passed out about a minute into the run. My classmate's dad had a heart attack at graduation and died. He was just yelling at his wife and keeled over. At one of the schools I went to, some kid stabbed a disabled kid to get into a gang. We had somebody plant fake bombs and call in a bomb threat at the high school so the police would all be focused at the high school. Was really just a distraction for a double homicide/suicide across town. Edit, this was in Northwest Washington. I still remember one kid bashing another in the head with a metal stool. There was a lot of blood. Summer school is dangerous. Other than that, just your average sex scandals, drugs, odds, etc. Added a couple of words I forgot earlier. A teacher went to break up a fight and she got stabbed in the chest. Teachers were not allowed to break up fights after that. Did the teacher survive? Yes, but she quit teaching. We had a science teacher who was notoriously not all there and extremely quirky. He was also known for being the first one in the middle of a fight. I'm sure there was some connection there. We actually saw him break up a fight then get pulled out of class by the school administrators. He was pretty upset when he came back and opened up about it a little. I'm not sure if he got in any real trouble or if it was just the conversation that upset him, but he explained that he got talked to, half-heartedly joked he got sent to the principal. Someone asked why he bothered, if he knew he was going to get in trouble or even injured, and he had several times. His response really made me realize what a shithole the school was, but how genuine he was. He said that the administrators and the cops were too rough when breaking up fights. He didn't like seeing kids get teased or slammed into the ground, or dragged off of the property in handcuffs. If he could take a few punches, he didn't understand why the cops at the school couldn't, and he didn't see a reason for a couple of kids in a squabble to get arrested and permanently ruin their lives. To my knowledge, he still works at the school. We had a riot of sorts. 30 kids arrested, one pushed into a trophy case, another stabbed with the broken glass from the trophy case. No surprise he put himself right in the middle of it. Dude may have been a little weird and definitely not the best teacher I ever had, but the world could use more teachers like that. The seniors planned their senior prank to have a bunch of alarm clocks goes off in lockers all over the school throughout the day. The idea was that by the time one locker was unlocked to turn off the alarm, another would be going off. Unfortunately for the seniors, the day they planned this happened to be the same day Obama was campaigning at the fairgrounds less than a mile away. The alarm clocks got mistaken as bomb threats, and just about every senior in the school was questioned by either police or teachers. Basically it was just a huge misunderstanding that leads to a whole bunch of shit. You call it a misunderstanding, I call it poor timing. A girl was raped by a security guard in a bathroom during lunch. Holy, that's traumatizing. Yup. She was pulled out of school after that and transferred to a private school out of state. My brother dated a girl briefly in 8th grade who later snapped in high school. She had convinced a group of 5 other people to commit to a plan to weld the high school doors shut and burn people with a homemade flamethrower and shoot people. The morning of the planned day someone was tipped off and the cops called. The school went on lockdown for 6 to 7 hours and they found the girl's parents taped up and stabbed a crazy number of times in the closet of their home. This was 3 years after my brother dated her. Back in 6th grade, a classmate of mine was drowned in the bathtub by his father, who also killed his mom that day. Only his 6-year-old little sister survived. I think that was a pretty big shock for everyone at my school. Nothing as brutal as some of the other storied, but about halfway through the day, once a guy was spotted walking across our sports field with a rifle. Everyone was kept in classes for about an hour. Turns out it was some idiot looking for the nearby shooting range and accidentally stumbled onto into school. A lot of this is secondhand, because I was 10 when it happened, but here goes. A teacher at my elementary school was going through an extremely difficult divorce. Her husband was a generally angry guy, and he had really gone off the deep end when she served him the divorce papers. I also had 2 kids enrolled in the same school. So the husband goes MIA for a week or 2, no contact with anyone, unless it's through lawyers. Eventually, he comes back, a whole lot calmer, and for another week or 2, there's an uneasy peace. During this time both of them were moving their stuff from the home to live separately, always with witnesses so nothing went down. One day she shows up at school more distraught than usual and leaves at lunch to go back to the house. The husband lured her there somehow, most people think by tricking her to agree to a midday moving session, but it was a trap. She showed up, it was only him, and he killed her before turning the gun on himself. It was a small community, so it hit everyone really hard. Friend and co-captain of the soccer team brutally murdered his parents. His mom was my English teacher. A very sweet and popular girl who was a friend of mine was killed by her father while she was in middle school. Her grandmother was a lunch lady in elementary school and was a student favorite. Her dad was a cop, and after killing her he killed himself, leaving his wife without a child or husband. A girl 2 or 3 grades behind me was raped and murdered. Her body stashed behind a dumpster I walked past every morning. I didn't know what was going on until I saw her older sister convulsing in sobs so hard she was being physically restrained. They caught the guy. He was a repeat offender who lived on her street. Now there's a playground with her name on it, not 50 yards from where she suffered and died. Edit. She was 8 years old. It got destroyed by a tornado as we were evacuating. Some kid brought a gun to school and loaded the magazine in class. He put the bullets in backward. A suicide pact was successfully carried out between a rich/popular cheerleader and her wrong side of the tracks boyfriend from another school. When her parents forbade her from seeing him, they jumped off a cliff together to their deaths. Rumors indicated she initially survived the fall and suffered for hours. It was surreal watching reporters descend upon the school and all the opportunism that occurred as a result of the tragedy by both students and media groups. We had a kid at my high school who was the weird kid. He was mentally slow, was very socially awkward, heavily into anime and WWE. He was a really genuine great guy, which is why we started talking and became quick friends. Then about 4 months later I heard from a mutual friend, his best friend, that he passed away in his sleep the night before and was found that morning. He had heart problems, he had to take medication. 4. He had a heart attack in his sleep and no one knew till his mom went to wake him up the next morning. Word got around school a day after that about his passing. It disgusted me how many students who barely knew him or talked to him were his best friends all of a sudden. We had some people play actual Russian roulette, and when someone eventually lost, the other 2 guys tried to hide the body. They are both in jail now. After school 3 siblings were crossing the road. One was on a bike and his younger brother was on the handlebars when a truck hit them, killing them. Their sister watched them die. The next year, after I went to a different school, the band teacher's wife suspected him of cheating, so she hired a private investigator. The investigator caught him banging a 14-year-old on the side of the road. The teacher tried to run the investigator over with his car. This happened in Clermont FL, if you want to Google it. Not really at my school, but when I was a junior these 3 boys went out to this guy's house in the middle of nowhere to rob him. I guess he had a lot of guns and money and stuff that they wanted. When he opened the door they started beating him up, and I guess they just wanted to beat him enough to where he couldn't fight back while they took his stuff, but they ended up beating him so bad that they killed him. Two of them went on the run, while the third one showed up to school the next day. The police came and arrested him at school. That was a fun time. Geography prof didn't want kids. Knocked up the photography prof with two twins while on the school ski trip. I had almost the same thing happen, except it was a music teacher banging an English teacher. And I wasn't a student, I was the English teacher's husband. A hall monitor that everyone hated slipped on the ice and broke both wrists. One girl died in a car accident. Otherwise, just a lot of heroin. A teacher was gangbanged by 11th and 12th grade students. It was consensual on her part. And it wasn't at school, to be clear. One student poured baby oil all over the upstairs hallway, ruined the floors, and broke a janitor's leg. His family had to pay for damages, and now our school has a strict no lubricants policy for senior pranks. Edit. I go to school in Ohio. Someone gave a teacher a pot brownie and we ended up on national news. We were a poor trailer park school with high rates of domestic and substance abuse. The worst incident I remember at school was one kid shooting another kid in the stomach over a bad drug deal. Did it right in front of everyone in the hall between classes. The worst thing to happen in general though was a classmate of mine breaking into an old woman's home to rob her, discovering she was home, and murdering her with a baseball bat. That whole school felt like it was cursed, and people just got meaner there, merely by walking inside its doors. The worst guy at my school did the second as well. Beat 75-year-old women in an attempt to get heroin money. She didn't die, but she definitely suffered for the rest of her life from the injuries. He also raped a girl at a homecoming game, left a severed pig's head in front of the town hall, helped a lot of people overdose, and countless other petty shit. He ended up getting tied to a tree in one of our state parks and was beaten to death. No one has any idea who did it, but I don't think anyone cared enough to look very hard. Had a couple of kids sneak in over the weekend and plug all the sinks and leave the water running. One of the kids was the son of the town's attorney. They only got caught because somebody started talking. Never saw the attorney's kid again after that. We had some asshole take a shit down the staircase, hitting all 3 floors on the way. I didn't know this, but apparently, a poop can legally be classified as a biological weapon. The school had to be shut down for 3 days and the State Bureau of Investigation got called in. I heard the term bioterrorism get thrown around. Never caught the guy. I had a teacher who was literally crying while teaching and no one knew what was wrong or what to do. Finally, she told us she found out her husband was cheating on her with her best friend that morning. No idea why she didn't take the day off. Some furry girl tried to set our brick building school on fire with leaves. Multiple stories here. The first one, kid exposed himself to like 6 different girls. They had all reported it. 6th finally got him expelled. He was 18. The school wouldn't let the police get involved. In the second one, the teacher was having sex with students. Very obviously. Because the principal was retiring and didn't care, he just made it where she couldn't close her door anymore. Finally, it gets out. The school collects 6 years of evidence that she was doing this, then sat on it. Meanwhile, she quit, moved to counties over, and started teaching there. There's more. Those were just 2 of the bigger issues. Had a series of sex offenders. One, in particular, had just been released from juvie for getting a 13-year-old drunk and molesting her while he was 16. They let him back in, no idea why. He got arrested not too long after. I'm just going to copy paste a story I've told in another thread years ago. Our senior class valedictorian was murdered by her gangbanger boyfriend just months before graduation. She was this super smart 4.0 student, helped motivate classmates to do well in school. I was one. She helped me pass classes my sophomore year, just to be a good person, but had a thing for thugs. Loved guys in gangs, and you'd never know it, because she was your typical well-dressed, well-to-do white girl living in a farming town. Anyway, she broke up with this guy, and he started stalking her, and had to get a restraining order, and all kinds of other crazy shit happened. Well, after some serious drama, when he showed up, and threatened to kill her, yelling that if he couldn't have her nobody could, and the police essentially did nothing about it, he waited in the bushes for her dad to leave for work the next morning. snuck in through her window that morning and shot her in the head while she slept. Killed himself too. Dad got home and found them both dead after work. It rocked us to our core. I always remember that as the experience that made me hate the news media. They were bombarding us with questions, filming us crying and grieving. We all starting walking to classes outside with our middle fingers up, so they wouldn't have any footage to use. It worked for the most part. I'd dealt with death plenty with grandparents dying up to that point, but when it's unexpected and sudden for someone that hasn't even gotten old enough to vote yet, that's fucking rough. I see pictures of her pop up every year when people mourn the anniversary of her death, and it's so sad to think of how much she'll never experience because some douche couldn't handle her not wanting him. Her family sued the police department for that and won a fucking mountain of money. When Dad was interviewed about it, the only thing he could say through his tears was, "My daughter is still dead. This money isn't going to make that pain any easier. I just wanted the police to change their ways so nobody else has to go through this." If I'm not mistaken, the whole department was fired almost immediately after, and he donated all that money to charity. South African here. Gang violence including, but not limited to, pulling a kid's eye out of a socket with a grain sickle, beating kids and even teachers with bats and pipes, burned my friend's brother with deodorant and lighter flamethrower. Our head boy got arrested and is currently in jail for looting and property destruction. It's all pretty normal at this point, and I live in a rural area. It's worse in the cities. We had a kid, let's call him Steve, who had some anger management issues. In kindergarten, he would get mad and throw things. In first grade, I was in class when he literally threw a chair, pushed over a desk, then punched and kicked a teacher. He was expelled and came back in third grade because in our district expulsion only lasted a year in most cases. In third grade, he pushed a girl up against a locker and choked her. He shut another kid in a locker too, and was really mean, especially to a different girl with Downs, who couldn't talk and tell him to stop. Steve threw a chair again at a teacher and was expelled again. He came back again in 5th grade and got expelled after biting my friend and hitting him. My friend was helping him with math when Steve turned to him, bit him, and broke the skin. My school ended up changing their policies at that point to allow for permanent exclusion. I think Steve ended up going to a school for kids with behavioral issues. Multiple things. We went on lockdown for over 3 hours and students had to shit and pee in the trash cans. We were on lockdown because they thought someone walked by with a gun, but it was an umbrella. Another lockdown happened within that month as well, because someone that went to the school was walking on the trail near our school with a gun case, but they had a bong inside. The boys at the school are on their last straw to even have access to the bathrooms. They hotbox the locker rooms, and in the main bathrooms, people have smeared shit on the wall. There was another incident in the main bathroom where someone brought in their diarrhea from home in a Gatorade bottle, one with the nipple top, and sprayed it all over our newly renovated bathrooms. I hate high school. My friend just reminded me that someone also took an upper decker in the boys' bathroom recently, shitting on the top part of the toilet. No, I'm not in the USA, I'm in Canada. Thank you for watching. Tell me which one was your favorite. Like, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more. The next video will be even more interesting. You are a legend.